Buddy. So, welcome,
Hi.
welcome to. Hey, good morning, Renee.
Morning. Hello.
Morning, Justin. Morning, Megan. It's
Morning.
live. We're live, and we're talking about collaboration. It's really exciting. One of the things that we work remote collaboration, here to stay. It's a really topical thing, obviously. One of the things we really want to be just talking about how some small best practices, things that we do that we found has made it much more effective and was part of a greater, larger remote workplace or workplace collaboration adoption guide that we're putting together. So be on the lookout for that. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you everyone who watches regularly, comments. Please like and subscribe. Just if you don't know who we are, we're Valiant Technology. We're a IT managed service provider here located in New York, but we service clients nationally. And please check us out. We're on thevaliantway.com live. But before we go into our collaboration, I'm going to hand it over to Justin for the download.
So this morning I want to talk a little bit about something that's been up in the news lately, and that is the death of third-party cookies and what we have to replace it. A little background on cookies, also being my favorite snack, but these cookies are small files that a website leaves on your computer to store information. And this is, something that's been around for a long time. If you remember old browser and computer optimizer products were like, oh, and it clears your cookies for you. Was that? And what these files do a lot of times is store things like session data or things like your preferences for a website so that you don't have to log in every single time. You go to a site, you log in, and it keeps that session active while you're browsing the site, or if you click the remember me and keep me logged in buttons, when you come back it keeps you logged in. And a lot of really useful things that we use on a daily basis when we're browsing are powered by these small files called cookies. The ones that have become sort of infamous are what's called third-party cookies. These are cookies that are left not by the site that you're visiting directly, but by another site that has something linked into it. And on a base level, you could think of it as, a banner ad. When you go to a web page and that ad loads, that ad's loading from another site completely, not, the page that you're looking at. And that site can also place a cookie on your machine. Uh, Even if it's not a full banner ad that you can see, there are also things it's called tracking pixels, which are invisible, just ways to add that in, or things that you see that have functions. Anytime that social buttons really is a big one. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those buttons where it's like, oh, share this on Facebook. That'll include some kind of tracking so that it links it back to your account.
So this is why if I click on that Solo Stove ad on LinkedIn, I will see or Facebook, I will see that Solo Stove ad
Exactly.
everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
these are used to build a tracking of your activity, and advertisers use that to target ads at you. Not necessarily the best thing in the world, not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but there are some privacy concerns with that, especially because you can track an individual's activity across multiple websites and build a picture of what they're looking to do.
Mm.
Right.
So not the greatest thing from a privacy point of view. There are things that you can do, like turn on incognito mode or private mode when you're browsing. This doesn't prevent cookies from appearing on your machine. It just deletes them when you're done. So even doing that, if you click on an ad, there still can be information that's exchanged and things move. So really, third-party cookies, great for advertising and getting custom advertising, and not so great for privacy. Advertising on its own, we do want to say, is part of what makes the web that we know. I mean, the idea of this vast amount of free content for you to consume is built on advertising dollars that people are advertising to you. So the idea of just getting rid of that advertising is not a really something that we can do and still keep the web open and free.
Right.
So Google's proposed a new system that is called the Federated Learning of Cohorts, or FLoC. It's a little complicated under the hood, but the general idea is that rather than mapping to specific users. So being able to look at, like this person's identity has all the things that they've had. They build these general cohorts, they're called, which are large groups of thousands of users, thousands of people that have similar trends, similar interests. So it could be people that like Star Trek who are also vegan and drive a Ford. And that becomes a cohort. And these cohorts update on a regular basis. The idea there is that advertisers can then target to specific groups of people without collecting information about those individuals. And this isn't a end all be all. There still are privacy issues for this. For one, this collection happens at the browser layer. So your Chrome browser or others will collect that data about you to put you in the cohorts that you're in. It's also not necessarily a panacea against individual tracking, because if you go to a website that you've given information to, like your email address or your name or your Facebook login because you've logged into Facebook, well, it's going to know what cohort you're in based on what the browser is saying the cohort you're in, and now that information can be correlated as well.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's also criticism around making it easier to target specific groups. If you recall, Facebook got into some trouble because the way that their advertising algorithms worked, you could target ads to specific groups, and the HUD actually was brought charges against them at one point because banks were able to, or realtors, and were able to tailor their targets for their ads to avoid certain classes of people, which is not something that they're allowed to do, nor is it ethical to do. But
Right.
Yeah.
so there's potential criticism around that. Overall, the idea here is that we do need something to replace third-party cookies. Flock may not be, it's certainly better than third-party cookies are. The criticisms against it are not anything new that third-party cookies don't have, but it's probably not the end-all be-all answer. And there's still a lot of uncertainty as to what direction things are going to go. Some browsers are saying that they're not going to support this. Some browsers, some people and companies are jumping in with both feet. And really, it still remains to be seen what the end result is going to be. But I'm sure you can rest assured that there will still be advertising online. That's
Right.
not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. That's awesome, Justin. Well, thank you for that.
You're
That's
welcome.
totally informative. And in the UK, they call internet cookies biscuits.
I sure hope so.
Boo. Anyway, so
That's an important piece of them.
see yourself
Yeah.
out. All right, so let's get back to collaboration. This is really important. You know, we're in a year plus of this kind of remote workplace. All the kind of signs indicate that we're going to be going towards a new kind of hybrid workplace, kind of work environment. So, I think the first thing that we really wanted to jump in here is that you can have all the tools in the world, and I'm sure Marianne will agree with this. You have all the tools in the world, but if no one knows how to use them, then they're pretty useless, right? So let's just talk about that for a minute. So, Marianne, what's your kind of taking on that?
Yeah, I mean, we discuss this all the time, and it's
Right.
part of the reason why we offer training on tools and things that you get, with your email and things like that. It's just, you can hand someone a bunch of tools, but if they don't know how to use it, they're not
Right.
going to use it properly. And this leads to things like shadow IT, or just, a lack of productivity, or, you spending money on software that people aren't making the most out of. So there's a lot of reasons to make sure that people know how to collaborate with each other, they know how to communicate, and and they are trained properly on how to use their tools.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's the interesting piece there is not so much the tools themselves, but how you use them, and how
Right.
that it doesn't matter which shovel you're using as long as you're digging the hole in the right place. I feel
I
like
mean, it does a little. If you're using a spoon,
that's true. Yes,
It might be a lot longer. So
Actually,
there's a
it
bit
doesn't
of
matter which
tailoring.
but if you're
brand
using a
of
shovel
shovel.
upside down, it's still not gonna. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And I feel like when we meet with prospects, even, I feel like a refrain of a pain point is often like, well, I could get this. Who knows if my team's going to use it? Like that's
Mhm.
that
Really
can be a
common.
lot. So
Exactly. And
Yeah.
a lot of companies spend a lot of money on a lot of different things, or I remember seeing a statistic like how many failed IT projects there are because they're just not adopted by the company, right?
Sure.
So really, what we're trying to our overall kind of like thrust here is just to kind of like get past the how, get past the what, and go to the how. We have the why. We know why we need to collaborate. We're remote. We're hybrid. People are working from anywhere now, and we're gonna have. So this is three of the nine. Some of the three of part of a greater set of best practices we're putting together. So be on the lookout for that. We have this workplace collaboration guide that we have coming out in a couple of weeks or very soon. I'm not sure the exact date. I'm sure we very soon though. So we're really excited. So we want to give it a preview of it. So one of the first things that we found was in terms of this collaboration environment is open and constructive communication, right?
Yeah.
So this is number 4 from our communication guide. So, I mean, we all communicate all the time, right? I mean, I was saying earlier today, we were kind of prepping for this, and I said, I haven't seen, the only person I've seen in real life in over a year is Megan once. Yet, I talk to everyone here just about every day. And I feel actually more connected because we're kind of open. People can call each other, and you may not have as much of that spontaneous communication, but I think there's a lot of great focused communication. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's important because obviously the communication is different, is to at least have an idea or a plan of how that's going to work.
Right.
And that's something that we do. I mean, even just, we communicate weekly to plan this stream, and we have that set up. Whereas if you don't have sort of those plans to talk to people, in the past, we used to be able to just shoulder tap. We used to be like, hey, I've got an idea. And now it really has to be like, is this something that I can just hop on a call with someone? Maybe not. Maybe we need to schedule. Maybe we need to make sure that we have this open communication, and that communication can go both ways.
Right. I think sorry, Meg, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just to go on what you said, George, where it's like it's more focused communication, where like I could get maybe almost a little diffuse in what I like the information when I was getting it, because I could see people and ask them and poke my head into Justin's office. But now it's like if I have a question, I know, like you and I have our weekly meeting where we just go over everything, and I know that's when I bring it up. And that I think not seeing everyone every day, you have to use the time you have together a little more intentionally. That's all I say.
Exactly. And, we try to, one thing, we have a general and a kind of a more common area, like almost like like a digital break room, if you wanted to give it that title, even though it's kind of like not exactly analog to each other. But, I think it's really, and one thing I think is important is finding out what other people are doing, because, in an office environment, you kind of have the scuttlebutt. Everyone kind of hears things what's happening in the environment. But when you're working in this kind of like hybrid work environment, you may not know what's happening in other parts of the operations in the company. Like you just don't know, hey, is there new business coming? Is there this kind of event? Is there lunch? Like whatever it is going to be. So I think there's a lot of that. So
I found myself having lots more smaller meetings rather than the larger group meetings.
Right.
And I feel like this is more productive in a way, because the larger meetings, it's easier to get lost or go off tangent or have things all over the place. And when you have, maybe 3 people on a call, it's more directed, but you still have some of that feedback. And by doing more of those and mixing it up and having it around, you kind of get a more of a sense of what's going on from different people.
Yeah, we used to have big company all staffs, and part of the early on working is kind of hybrid. We used to have all staffs, and it was me talking to everyone, and I felt it was like this like miserable experience for both myself and for the staff. Like everyone hated it. I think they hated it, but they didn't say anything. Just kind of stared blankly. Like, when is this gonna be over? And I was like, hey, when is this gonna be over? So give Darren Daly, one of our brilliant engineers, he called it the small staff, and it becomes more of a round table. And while it may take some more time to get the same information, he said the initial part, the output that you get back from feedback is so strong that it's great, like collaborative feedback loop. And right now we do them every month, and we're starting to get kind of getting into it. And I get really excited doing them. So
yeah, I mean, it might have more take up more time on your calendar, but the efficiency, it really, ends up being better.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just exactly like you said. It's one way to shift the way that you're communicating, is to make more people involved, to get a more efficient collaboration with people and communication.
Yeah, and I think similar to that is the way that we set up and structure our teams, our chat teams in Teams. And it doesn't necessarily need to be teams that you use for this, but we've got combinations of kind of like a random channel and stuff that are more social and fun, where everybody's there and you can just post non-work things. And then we have some that are specific to certain tasks, even when they have the same people that are in another one that's for a certain task. And it's a way of driving that to this chat thread here is about this particular thing that the 5 of us are working on, and we're going to discuss that thing here. We're going to discuss this other thing that the same 5 of us are working on in this other thread over here, and that way it's more cohesive and easier to refer back to.
Yeah.
And bringing it back to knowing how to use the tools, whether you have Teams or Slack or any other sort of instant messaging platform, if your team knows how to use it, having these separate channels really helps, because I can mute the text channel so that I'm not always getting, notifications when something, the texts need to know if something bad happened. And I maybe don't necessarily right away. So that's something that you can do on an individual level, or if you're setting up a channel, if you are setting up that video games channel where we can all talk about the new Pokemon Snap, you can actually on the channel level make it so people can't do @ mentions or @ channels, and it doesn't interrupt people's day. So if you know how to use those, you can still keep these like camaraderie channels and having a lot of different pools of communication, and keep it still really efficient and make it not like disruptive.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's really important. I mean, like I think all of us are suffering from, alert fatigue at times, or notification fatigue, at just constant and, attention span being a precious commodity in this day and age. You want to preserve it as best you can. And that's part, maybe we get there in a different part of our collaboration. But anyway, it's so important. I think another thing is in this kind of like hybrid or this collaboration is, really kind of fostering the team cohesion, like when you're working together. And it's like the most important thing, right? Like you know what it's like when you don't feel like you're connecting or gelling with someone you work with. Like they're not getting you, you're not getting them, and sometimes you need to like build in structure to foster that. It can't just be organic, because if it's organic, the results may not be what you want. Right. I think so. One thing we see a lot is scheduled daily stand-ups. Super important. So I think that every day, I mean, Justin and I talk every morning, every afternoon. And sometimes it's hyper focused on tasks at hand. Sometimes we're making jokes about TV shows, but they both have their purpose and value. And we actually, before I go further with this, I just want to bring in, we have a comment from Nick. I'm sorry if I'm going to wreck your name. I apologize in advance. Nick Mavro Mastukis. I did it wrong. Sorry about that. I tried. So one of our biggest challenges is people's resistance to learning how to properly use these collaborative tools. And you're right, it's a reluctance, resistance. People get overwhelmed by it. They don't want to. They want to change their way they've worked. How many times, Marian, have you heard, "This is how we've always done it"? So what are some of the things you use to break through as a trainer?
I mean, I think the first thing though is to not expect people to self-train. I mean, I am fully I get the IKEA furniture and I throw away the instructions. I'm like, I got this. And when people do that, they miss key parts. Or they just make it so it just works and they don't explore. So I think it's really important for like from the top down to really emphasize that training should happen. Making sure that you offer these opportunities that you make convenient for people. And another thing is, if you can get tailored training, like don't just say, here's some videos, this is how to use it. If you can tailor the training to actually what old man yells at cloud. And now we're talking about, the internet cloud instead of
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, if you can get the more tailored to what they're actually working on, people can really go, oh, I can use this. This is exactly what I've been doing, but maybe I've been doing it in 3 steps and I can do it in 2 steps with this.
Right.
Or like, I mean, I think part of the point is that you do need to, from a top level, really emphasize why it's important, how it's going to help them, and make sure it's not like, hey, we're giving you this tool so we can save money on time. Make it like, hey, we're giving you this tool so your job's easier.
Right.
And I really do think, like you said, Marianne, it's driving that to what people are actually doing and what their actual needs are, and not just here's the instructions to put your IKEA furniture together. Because if you bought them an IKEA chair and what they really needed was a desk, it doesn't matter that they're not going to put it together because
we see that all the time.
It's not what they need. So having that understanding of what the workflow is and saying like, here's a tool that makes the job that you're doing easier by doing this, because here's how we're doing it is a way to drive that. Like, people don't want to use let's say video conferencing, but if you make a meeting 3 times a week where you're meeting with them using that tool, now they're going to start using it and they're going to see the benefit of it because it becomes part of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, at the end of the day, a big part of the why, like why are we doing this? Explain why. I think a lot of times, and it's hard. You have to do it persistently with your staff, explaining why we're doing this, underpinning of the purpose of this tool. Tools. And I'm gonna fall on my own sword. Tools for tools' sake is a degenerate IT person thing. We loved. I like, if 4 screws will do, 20 is better. Why wouldn't we have 4? Why wouldn't you have 20 screws? It's going to work better. It's like, and so we have to be really cognizant of not over engineering and making things cool or what we think is what people want. It has to be what the person, what the company needs.
Yeah.
And actually, 2 ways. I would say 2 ways to do that is to make sure that the people who are actually doing the work have the input. Like, make sure you discuss it with them, get their ideas, foster this communication, exactly what we're talking about, collaboration. Because if the person who's twisting that screwdriver in doesn't get to talk to the person who's buying the screws, then they'll be like, What'd you get me? I could have easily told you,
right?
The right thing. Or even if they don't know, like, I think also another thing is sometimes people expect, like, tell me what you need. And it's, maybe give them a little, like, a way to communicate and be like, well, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to adhere this to this. Well, what about screws? Let's discuss. And it can be a thing. And if you can't do it, maybe your IT provider can. And that's why you get a nice partner who can find solutions to your problems.
Right. Or train you how to use them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and as this going back to thank you, Nick. Thank you, David.
I love that comment.
Always appreciate it. And we kind of wrapping up the cohesion thing. We think it's really important. Like our management team, we meet every morning, afternoon. I know our tech team meets at the end of each day, 3 days a week. There's stand-ups for the sales marketing teams. There's stand-ups and training. We really want that sense. And just knowing in this past year, there's some of the things that we've implemented in a year. Like, Justin and I had a meeting yesterday with some of our other folks in the company, kind of going through some of the things that we've accomplished in a year, and it's just a quarter. It was actually really pretty powerful. Once you start really tracking it and collaborating on it. So I think it's really great. And this last one's actually kind of a sensitive one, I think, because I as someone who falls prey to not always being the most mindful person, being mindful of how you communicate with people, because everyone has a somewhat slightly different communicative style, and things that you have to be just. There's so many different challenges of the different forms of communication. You guys communicate all day, everybody. What do you guys think?
I actually love a really quick example. I am a dry texter, and everyone thought I was mad at them, and I wasn't texting. And I was thinking about that with my emails, right? Where it's like, where's the balance of professionalism, but also sort of a bit of personality? So that's sort of my personal life brought into this, but tone is everything, because then your friends, like a week later, they're like, are you mad at me? You don't want a prospect to think you were somehow upset with them when all you're doing is communicating information.
Right.
Yeah, and I've gotten the opposite of that, where I've been like, oh, this person, I'm going to send them this really angry email, and the feedback I get from the other people who are CC'd on it is, wow, you're way too nice to them. And I'm like, really? I thought I was being mean. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
happens.
tone is important, obviously, for communication, for collaboration. And I think it's even more important that so many of us are working in hybrid environments. You know, you're going to be talking to some people in person, you're going to be talking to some people almost exclusively on the phone or almost exclusively in video chat.
Mhm.
And it is important to know and adapt to those situations. Um, and it is going to be a little bit different for everyone, but it is something that is worth taking the time to think about. It's going to be different for every, different people you talk to. I can talk to my coworkers and write, hey, y'all, in the beginning of my email, but I'm not necessarily going to do that to a client. But even then, if I also know my relationships with clients, if I say, hello, Mr. Smith, this is your training manager, like it would be too cold. So it is
Right.
something to find that balance on.
You kind of be like, what's up with this? Is this
Yeah.
is this phishing? Are they phishing me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's
it would
true.
be so out of context of the person, and you know them, and
Yeah.
and it's actually interesting because you know, much like anything in life, if you pause for a second and think about what you're going to say before you say it, you generally will do a much better outcome. You know, it's kind of the classic like surgery thing where everyone goes like, "Hey, what are we all doing today before we start cutting?"
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the same thing. Like, what exactly am I going to say here? Because a lot of times it's I was saying personal when you're off the cuff and you're just send it off fast. It goes
Yeah.
it usually ends bad. It doesn't always
Yeah.
end well. So that one and so and also just to be mindful of people's kind of situation in life right now, because it has been a long year of
Yeah.
home remote work and kind of understanding that. So I think it's and I think it's really important to just be respectful of each other in the communication and understand that maybe you shouldn't be as a dry texter or know who you talk to, or I know someone gets I know myself, I get in
Right.
trouble that way too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it's
also,
hard.
I mean, we talk about things like tone and communication as like a soft skill, but there are, things that you can do, especially as a business owner. You can do some top-down tone setting. You can really dictate what things look like, show it by example, but you can also set policies and things like that. And between the different people that you're going to be working with, and you do want to always, like you said, make sure the communication is open, so when there are those oopsies in tones, people feel comfortable talking to you and clarifying, is this what you meant, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Because even if we're going back to dry texting, I'm glad that your friend would bother to say, hey, are you mad at me, rather than just talking to her therapist and being like, my friend's mad at me, and you
Yeah.
never hear about it. So
And I
Right.
think that brings up a great point of just like employing empathy, like looking at, just imagining the person who's receiving what you're sending out.
Yes.
You know what you mean, but you're like, if I was receiving this, because we're more sensitive when we receive things than when we put them out there.
Mhm.
So I think that's a really important thing to remember.
And I think with that as well is choosing the right medium for the message. There are some things that are best in a conversation, some things that are best in an email, some things that are best in chat. And I think knowing the situation and knowing who you're communicating with and what that situation is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one policy you can implement to really help with collaboration and communication is to encourage video calls, especially even internally, have people have their video on, because as we talked at the top, it really is more, we're connecting, we are collaborating, and you're going to be able to see my tone, which is a weird way to say that, but you are going to be able to understand what I'm saying a little bit better if you can see me going.
Yeah. Facial expressions.
I have a very
Yeah.
expressive face.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, and just from paying attention perspective, right?
Yeah.
When someone's on video and you're looking at you're looking at each other, and basically, and you're going to get way more of that person's attention, and maybe you can solve. I mean, if you want to talk about efficiency, you can solve it faster because you're getting all that person's attention. I mean, all of us have been on phone calls, and the person's not listening to what you're saying,
Right.
and it's just like, okay, Yeah.
I mean, I've been on engineering calls, and I'll do like pose something or say something, and before Darren can even answer, I can say, I know you hate this. This is a bad idea. No, you don't like it, because I can see it on his face.
You can watch,
you know?
watch his face.
Right. I can watch like, okay, yeah, no, you don't like that. And
calling out Darren a lot today, by the way.
Because he's a good person to collaborate with. He's
a very collaborative person.
He's the person I go to when I need the check on, like, am I crazy here? What am I missing here? He's always the one to bring me back.
It pulls you back in. No, yeah. but that's true though. Like, you see someone's face, you know where they're coming from, and it's not the same exactly as in person, like in a room. But man, it's close, and it's way better than just a phone or an email or a dry text, like where it's just like, and I mean, how many times have you gotten the email, you read it, and you're like, wait, am I, what's going on here? Or am I crazy? And then you get this reaction, angry about it, and then in reality, that could be a 5-minute phone call or a 5-minute video chat, which is even better than a phone call. You see the person, okay, and instantaneously you're more empathetic and connected to someone. You see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a human thing. I think very much so.
And back to the beginning, the more that you practice being on a video call, the more comfortable you are. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very comfortable on a video call.
Me too.
So
compared to before all this, I never wanted to have. I didn't have a webcam. I purposefully didn't have one on my desktop. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't have a webcam. Sorry. Now it's like I can't imagine doing calls without it. It just feels natural.
Yeah, I saw Nick today. He came in the office and he made me jump out of maybe Nick here Valiant, and it made me jump. I was like, it's Nick, because like I hadn't seen him in a couple months, so it was good. But it's good though, and once again, it's such a useful, and especially when you're not seeing each other in person for some time, you still feel connected. You still feel like part of the, and I think that's going to be a great thing going forward with just people work remotely, work from anywhere, whatever you want. I think work from anywhere is a better way of calling it, and it's really powerful stuff. So, man, we covered a lot of ground today. So there's a lot of gems in here, a lot of things that you can take away. But the biggest thing is just keep practicing on all your collaboration, because it's a constant effort to make it better and get a better outcome of it. So, and just to kind of put it all together, we'll be having this guide come out very shortly. I'm really excited to see it come out. It's great. It's been worked on. Matt's been doing a tremendous job of putting it together. So thank you, Matt. And next week we have a great stream about, and this is a really complex topic. It's one that you could spend a lifetime on, quite honestly, and that is aggregating internal knowledge. Man, and for like us as a company, Valiant, institutional knowledge and documentation is like both our life's blood and our heart, and one of the most difficult challenges of these kind of this kind of operation. Yeah. So, and really, so we had some practices on it. What were some ways to curate that knowledge and kind of like get some good outcomes from it. And it's really, really powerful stuff. So I'm really excited. And once again, if that was a great stream today, guys, everyone. If you like the stream, please check us out on thevaliantway.com. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com, Valiant Technology. Like and subscribe. If you have questions, send them off to us. We love answering questions. Many streams that we put together were formed from questions or suggestions or off the cuff comments about yelling at clouds. Thank you, David, again. And with that, I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you so much, and really appreciate everyone. All right, have a great week. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.